Hello, everyone. We are live again for Author Live Chat with fans, and today, Tuesday series is for the next page turner. And today, 8th March, 2022, 8 p.m. CST. We are live on Facebook page, and we have a new author joining us to talk about Dracula and a new perspective of it, and how he has incorporated Dracula and many of the characters into his story. So he is author L.C. Curtis. And so without further ado, let's welcome the author to the show. Hello there. Hello. Thank you for joining the show. And I'm so glad to have you here and chat about yourself and your book a little bit. So, before that, how are you and how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Awesome. Right. So, can you like briefly introduce yourself to the audience a little bit about what you do and where you're from?
My name is L.C. Curtis. I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I'm the author for the new book, Vampirus.
Right. And so talking about this book, I think this is your debut book, right? So um when did you like start writing?
I started reading the book itself towards the beginning of 2020, and I sort of put it on the back burner right before COVID started, and I just focused on other things for a while, and then fast forward to the later part of the year, and some in my life that maybe decided I need to get back on this and I need to make this happen. I originally conceived the world for this about 4 years ago with a band I had, where it was a continuation of this story, and eventually I thought that this would make a really good book or book series, and the idea just stuck with me for the longest time, and now it's finally unraveling for all the.
So it took you like about a year and a half?
It actually took me a total of 4 years to get the first book out. That's about how, and I have 6 more books in the series in the making. So I still have a long way to go.
Mm-hmm. And so talking about your book over here, Vampires, and the theme for
Vampires.
today's show is Dracula and the new perspective of it. So, could you tell us a little bit about your reading habits and what are the genres that you normally read and where you got this inspiration to write this particular book?
I got the inspiration not just from other books, however, all sorts of things, movies, other shows, games, RPGs, all sorts of things. H.P. Lovecraft books. I've always been a huge, um, and the way he pioneered horror books,
Mm-hmm.
and everything, and I just throw it all together in the series, and it comes natural. I put in here, so there's there's no end, and I'm completely open to all possibilities of where how things could turn out and how the story could.
Mm-hmm. Right. And talking about the books that you read often, and maybe do you have any favorite book that you've read that has become an inspiration to write this one?
I think the biggest book influence is definitely just a whole collection of short stories I have from Lovecraft. Um, Outside of that, I mostly read productivity books, how-to books, things of that nature. Those are most of the ones I have in my collection. But as far as any specific book, I would say Call of Cthulhu, Dagon, um, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And if you could tell us a little bit about the story of this book, like, without giving away the spoilers. So, what is it all about, and what can readers expect from the book?
Readers can expect a whole new world emerging from this. I think the coolest thing about Vampirus is that it not only provides a new depiction of Dracula himself, but it also introduces a whole new set of characters and a whole new vampire alongside of that. Um, it's a historical fiction set in a sort of theocratic bureaucracy type of dystopia that takes over Europe. It's at the very end of this war between four other vampire races that is won by the Vatican. They have their own military and soldiers and everything that they specifically trained up for things like this, for when regular police and citizens and what have you can't hold their own. And in light of winning the war, they more or less unite Europe, and it's all for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm,
And at the end of the last battle of that war is this main character who was born during Dracula's demise, Benjamin
mm-hmm,
Priest, which is his name. And he grows up and he has it pretty rough. He he's utterly disgusted by the world he lives in, and he knows that what he's being presented and what he's being pigeonholed into is
mm-hmm,
not too real. And
mm-hmm,
just he has this disdain for how doesn't anyone else around him that shares that same disgust that he has. So one day he's all grown up and he goes to Transylvania and into a Bran castle, which is illegal to enter, and he wants to unearth the Tomb of Dracula, which is allegedly cursed with a black magic that was put on the coffin at the end of the war. Little does he know, it's none of it's a rumor, and he becomes affected by it, and that's how he is given these vampire powers, and he uses them to more or less finish what Dracula started. That's all I'll say.
mm-hmm.
I don't want to get too much into it because I'll start rambling off.
Right. And so now coming to the book, I think it's just a little over 100 pages, and you have independently published the book. So, um, tell us about the publishing process of it. How has it been for you, and why independent publishing? And have you ever tried for it to be traditionally published? Walk us through a little bit about your publishing journey.
Um, Ever since I was very young, I've always been so serious about doing just about everything myself, which is actually terrible in hindsight. I was a very introverted person growing up, and of course now that's a lot of that is changing. It's drastically changed over time. So I just had the stigma of trying to do anything and everything myself, even if it was something a skill set in particular I didn't quite know how to do. I would take the extra time to try and teach myself how to do it. And
Mm-hmm,
like the whole marketing process behind it, I'm still definitely far from the best, but I've recently got into the habit of outsourcing a lot of things to other people, and it's greatly helped me. But in the very beginning, when I was brand new to this is being my first novel, so I still had a lot of uncharted territory to cover, and I still have much to learn. I've learned a lot in the past months in finishing and then releasing this book. Um, I'll even order some physical copies that I will sell in small local mom and pop shops. And
Mm-hmm.
I still have much to do as far as getting it out to more chain stores.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but basically, all I did was I just finished the book. I had it formatted and looking nice, and then I just uploaded it to Amazon, and I then taught myself paid Amazon ads, and that's really pretty much it. That's one of the only things I rely on.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of your audience right now, the readers, because I believe that yours is going to really have a niche group of readers, and how do you actually reach out to them? Like, is it through social media, and how do you actually stay in touch with them? And so that the community will help to spread the word about your book.
I have used social media. Again, I've used paid Amazon ads. I just recently started trying Google SEO, word of mouth, basically anything I'm familiar with and anything that I'm willing to learn, which at this point is just about everything.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And in terms of response that you get so far from your readers, your family and friends, what kind of responses have you gotten so far? What kind of feedback that you've gotten so far?
I've got nothing but positive feed. I've found old family members I haven't talked to in a long time, and not only am I getting back in touch with them, but they're seeing like what I've been up to, and they all seem to like it. It's definitely it's far from the most family friendly book there is. Um, it's there's definitely lots of over the top gore and kill scenes and things that you would find in a horror movie, but um, yeah, they all seem to like it, and it's a very compelling story, and I'm excited to see what the future books in the series bring out.
Mm-hmm. And talking about the other books that you have written so far, so tell us a little bit about that idea of writing those books, and how far has it come so far. So is it related to the book that you have published over here? Is it can we expect, like, sequel to it?
You definitely can expect a sequel sometime later this year. I've already started the rough draft, and I'm already on chapter 4. I try to have give each book a specific theme, a specific message. I've learned in recent times that sometimes fiction books are the best books to carry a weight because it's just like any piece of media. They all have
Mm-hmm.
some message, even if it's not intended for there to be a
Mm-hmm.
message. You can still find something like buried somewhere. It's just as the that one line is said before the chapter 1 starts, the truth is in fiction, hiding in plain sight. And because books are honestly the best way to uh, change someone's inner thinking, because it causes us to reflect on our own selves and put ourselves in that position. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
fiction
Mm-hmm.
books are the best way to do it. If it's in whether it's a message about social issues or a
Mm-hmm.
political subject or just anything that you want to convey to somebody, this is one of the best ways to do it.
Exactly, exactly. I agree, because I think when it is fiction, you possibly do not run into the risk of offending people directly, and you kind of like will get away with those risks involved. And I also have to say that when it's fiction, things will be more engaging with the audience, and I think it will be easier to send the message across to your audience. And so you were saying that you have, like, several messages embedded in the story of your all your books. So what is the message that you have for people, like in the book that you have published?
Well, there are messages that I've made for myself, and then there are other messages that people could find for their own selves. Perhaps it's more about what does it mean to them personally, as it already means something to me personally. I'm sure they'd probably find the same thing, but
Mm-hmm.
for myself, it's a lot of the themes and the beliefs that the villains have is actually a reflection of sort of a world and society that I grew up in. All the main characters are based on real people from my life that have greatly influenced me in some way. And even if it's for the negative or for ill intentions, it can still be counterintuitive because I can still control how that affects me and I can turn that around into something good. So even if they had intentions to do me wrong in some way, there's still nothing lost there. I guess for me
And
personally,
mhm.
um, it's to not. One of the biggest messages is to not let trivial things get in the way of a much bigger picture that you have for the world more than anything
Mhm.
else.
Mhm. Right. And the Dracula character that you have in your book, which is probably different than the other stories with Dracula and vampires. So maybe a little bit about why is it different in your book?
Well, he's very briefly mentioned or has any time beyond the first chapter. In fact, as far as he's alive, that's about the only time in the book that we see him or read about him in this case.
Uh-huh.
The way he carries himself is as a sort of authoritative, tyrannical ruler that actually has united the four vampire races that were once at war with each other. And that's for the whole nother book I will get into later on down the line, a prequel perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than being quiet and reclusive like he's portrayed in most movies and shows and everything else, he's he's more assertive and he is very he has an iron fist on the world that is crumbling before him that he built up. And without spoiling too much of anything, of course, the next vampire leader in the series wants to take that over, but things will take a very similar turn to as it does in the very beginning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. And so what do you think that or what do you hope the readers of your books to take away from your book? Like, what do you expect them to, like, get out of your book and benefit out of your book?
Well, there's definitely a lot of surprises and twists and turns that people don't see coming. I find that
Mm-hmm.
everyone that picks up this book and starts to get into it, they have a certain preconceived notion on what they might think it's about. They think, oh, it's a generic vampire book or it's a splatter horror kind of book. And while there
Mm-hmm.
is plenty of those elements in there, it goes so far beyond that, and they get not just a compelling story and characters that are highly relatable, but they get they get a new world and a new set of characters that they're going to grow to want to see evolve and change over time. And basically, all I can say is this is just the start of something much, much bigger. And the next book I have in the series is twice as this. And I actually never intended for this second book to be written or what it's about in anything. What was meant to be the second book is now the third book. And because I base so many real world events and my own experiences on this series, a second one just came out of nowhere. And find it very interesting because while I do have an outline for all the others, there's still no telling how accurate that's going to be to the final product.
Mm-hmm. And usually, like, how long do you take to write a manuscript? Like, what's the process like? Do you write, like, do you have a specific writing schedule that you follow, and or do you prefer writing just when you have the inspiration to write, and is that how you write it?
I'm mostly a passive writer. For a long time, that's
Mm-hmm.
what I've been. I try to set a schedule on how often I write, but for the most part, I don't like to force anything. Whatever comes natural, whatever I feel like is the right way to go, is what I will do. Um, I have other things related to this project that have also taken up quite a bit of my time that are also lengthy. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to get into setting a set schedule. And some days when I'm writing, I'll have a lot I want to get out there, and I'll really start to get into it. And then next thing I know, it's late at night and I have to go to sleep because I have to get up early for work the next morning. And it's like, oh man, I was really getting into it. It's kind of like playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons. You have this elaborate campaign, this elaborate story that you're playing in, but then, it's time to leave, or the time just flies, just like how it flies when you're doing anything. You get into this flow state and you don't want it to stop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. And as for your books so far, is it like in physical copy, and where do people can actually get it? Like, I we have displayed your website over here, which is lccurtis.com, and I think that's where people can learn more about yourself. But as for the book, we have Amazon over here, but where else can people pick up your book?
Uh, Pretty soon they'll be able to find it in big name stores like Barnes and Noble.
Mm-hmm.
Something I still have to work on, and then I have a few local shops around here that I sell it in. But when all
Mm-hmm.
else fails, right now, the website, Amazon, and yeah, that's about it. But more will come.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's not the
And yeah,
no, go
you
ahead.
were saying something.
Oh, I was gonna say it's not the only thing I have for this whole world, book
Mm-hmm.
wise. I'm not one to typically brag about my future endeavors, but I have been in talks with a film producer that has really enjoyed it, and they want to turn it into a full length movie. If I can rewrite it all as a screenplay, which have been teaching myself how to do, then they'll make it happen.
Fantastic. I mean, I think, yeah, talking about movies that have successfully been made into movies, I mean, books that have been successfully made into movies. Um, Tell us your viewpoint about about that? Like, do you enjoy reading the books, or do you actually enjoy watching it more? And how do you feel that the difference between what is in the book versus what you see on screen? Like, do you think it's good to have the storylines probably changed a little bit here and there for the screen? I mean, for the purpose of movie.
Oh, for sure. I think it's a great thing because you're introducing a whole new audience and a whole new set of people to this great story. And of course, the books have much more detail in them, whereas with the movie, it's just the highlights and the key elements. But yeah, I sometimes I like to read the books, and other times, well, I still like the movies anyway, no matter what, because I'm also a big film nerd, and I went to film
Hmm.
school for a couple years. So the real truth is, this is something I've wanted to see as a movie for, well, ever since the idea for the story began with me, and now
Hmm.
it's finally starting to take off, and it's a long time
Hmm.
dream of mine come true.
Fantastic. And so, what is the message out there to people who are watching this and people who would be, watching this later on Facebook? Either it's on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, because I'll be cross posting this video on YouTube as well as on Instagram. So, what is the message that you have out there for people who would want to read your book, or probably people who would normally be interested in your genre? What would you like to say?
If I had to sum up the book in a short sentence, I believe there's no other way to describe it other than it's like Tarantino meets Dracula.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
And
Right.
this is honestly just a small taste of more that's to come.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
It's only going to get
Fantastic.
bigger and more chaotic and crazier from here.
Uh huh. And yeah, so with that, I think we've come to the end of the show. We are nearing the end of the show. What other things that would you like to tell people out there, or is there anything else that you would like to convey in this video, in this interview right now, for your audience, maybe for your audience or even for your family members, for their support? Is there anything else that you would like to say?
Thank you guys for supporting me. And again, there's more to come. That's all I have to say.
Fantastic, fantastic. And I hope to be seeing you again in another interview to come, and hopefully, with more of your books published out there, and more exciting things to discuss about your books. So hopefully we will be able to meet again in the future for subsequent interview, and subsequent, and probably, get updates from you as well. So we are looking forward for that. I am looking forward for that, and I wish you all the best for your upcoming books. And hopefully, you will uh, get the deal, or probably sign a deal of a movie. Hopefully, out of your book. So that's going to be, I'm sure that's going to be like an exciting, very, very exciting journey for you ahead. So I wish you all the best for that. And thank you so much for joining the show today. And I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And yeah, I will be cross posting this video on Instagram as well as on YouTube, and I will be sending you the links once they are available, and I will send it across to you. So yeah, so people can actually even watch it on Instagram and also YouTube, and hopefully that gives you um, a wider exposure to your books.
I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you so much for joining. Take care and have a great week ahead.
I will. You do the same.
Thank you.